Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Devin. Just talk among yourselves for a half a second.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Great job, y'all.
Thank you, Bruce. I couldn't help but notice Bruce had an index card here with the words on it. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me call up Miles Hitchcock for the invocation, please. Miles.
As a matter of personal privilege, while I'm standing here, I want to say thank you to so many of you for your kindness, for your concern and expressions of willingness to help, and what you did for us during our own form of disaster. I'll tell you one thing that I think the worst part of it was the Sunday night news at 10 o'clock. They talked about this house on Pines Road that burned to the ground. And this young reporter, younger than both of my sons, said that there was an elderly couple at home at the time of the blaze. I told my wife, Linda, I said, I'm going to sue them. And she said, my wife, who has a way of putting me in my place, said, think about it, Miles. I think they were right. My prayer today reflects my experience. Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for life that we take for granted, life that we think belongs to us, not you. We thank you, Lord, for blessings too many to count, even the ones we don't know. But we ask you, Father, to help us to learn how to count them. We ask you, Father, to help us to remember that it wasn't luck, it wasn't chance, that you endowed us with specific gifts, talents, and abilities, not to serve our kingdom, but your kingdom, Lord. And we ask you to help us to remember that. Help us to be disciples for you, not for greed, nor lust, nor recognition, but as humble servants of your kingdom in this troubled world. We ask you, and I ask you in particular, to use us through our churches, our synagogues, our places of worship, and yes, this wonderful Rotary organization, that we may find what it is you want us to do with this life and go do it according to your will, not ours. Others, yes, others. Help us to live for others. Let that our motto be. Amen. Amen.
Thank you very much, Miles. Let me call Lawrence Calhoun to the podium for the introduction of guests.
Welcome, everyone. We'll start off. Guard Waite has a guest.
My guest is Nancy Alexander. Nancy is the director of Children and Family Network at Northwestern State University.
And Keith Hansen has a guest.
My guest is Patrick Curtin, the Senior Account Executive with Lamar, as well as a City Council candidate.
Dr. Gail Flowers has a guest.
My guest is Jennifer Lawrence. She works with me at Bossier Parish Community College as our Director of Advancement and has been a good friend since I've been there. Really enjoyed working with her, and she's going to be coming back to Rotary, hopefully soon.
Martha Merrick, please introduce your guest.
Hello, my guest today is Dr. Grace Peterson, and Grace is with the LSU Ag Center.
And from the South Shreveport Club, David Blue's visiting with us. Is there anybody that forgot to sign in any guests and want to introduce them? All right, thank you.
Let me announce again that the Rotarians from the Bossier City Club are in the hallway outside selling their tickets for the annual duck race. We always encourage our members to support the other Rotary clubs from the area. Another announcement, once more the committee sign-up sheets are on the tables here. We need more members on a lot of these committees, and this gives you a perfect chance to contribute to our club. Another announcement, roster ads are now being accepted. Charlie Hennigan is chairing that. Corey Boyette or Judy Ballou for an ad. Those papers are on the table there. And let me call up Terry Haynes for a presentation. Terry.
I think this past year, our Facebook page has received more likes than all other years combined. And the reason it has done that is because of all the pictures and videos that are on there. As the outgoing president, or actually gone now, it's my pleasure and honor to choose the Rotarian of the Year, the Al Kessler, thank you, Rotarian of the Year. And I chose a person who not only exemplifies service above self in their personal lives, but they're the reason our Facebook page has so many pictures and videos. And that person is Rob Adams. The Al Kessler Thank You Award travels around with the individuals, so you get to keep it this year. Your name is already on there. And once that's taken away from you, because it has to travel, you have this to keep as a remembrance of this. I know you don't like public stuff, but would you like to see a couple of those?
Well, this is unexpected. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Next up, call up Guard Wait to introduce our program.
Thank you, President Joe, and good afternoon to all. Our program today is about early childhood education and the opportunity we have to lift up our state without incurring any personal cost. This topic is vital to Louisiana. It's vital to our future if we're going to capture the potential of our great resources and leave something really great for our children and grandchildren. Our speaker is a board certified and board tested expert at taxation and business valuation. John Dean, CPA, spent 37 years at Heard McElroy and Vestal, LLC, 10 of those years as a managing partner, and he's now a partner of counsel. Since 1995, John has also been partner of counsel for Business Valuation Consultants, LLC. And he's also the owner of Air Systems, LLC, since 2000. John is a past president of the Shreveport Society of CPAs. He's a past president of the Louisiana chapter of Certified Valuators and Analysts. He's a past president of the Arklatex Tax Institute. And I could go on and on about that. Beyond his professional life, John Dean has a remarkable civic record. He's president of the Grayson Foundation. He's president of Step Forward. He's a past president of the Committee of 100, of the VOA, of the Greater Shreveport Chamber, of the Greater Shreveport Economic Development Foundation. And where I got to know John best was when he served for several years as treasurer for the Caddo Career and Technology Center Scholarship Foundation. Never forget those years. And John, by the way, this Rotary Club is now a regular sponsor of a scholarship, and our CCTC group has provided over $1,200,000 in scholarships. $1,200,000. I knew you'd be proud to hear that. John's been recognized in many ways, but I think it's significant to know that the American Institute of Certified Professional Accountants recognized him with its National Public Service Award. The Louisiana Society also recognized him with the Public Service Award, and the Greater Shreveport Chamber of Commerce named him Businessman of the Year, Business Leader of the Year. John and Lori have 30 years together. They have 5 grown children and 8 grandchildren. And James Blewett, I cannot verify this personally, but James Blewett says that John is an okay deer hunter, but he's an outstanding fisherman. Will you please welcome John Dean?
Guard, I'm glad your background research didn't include the Department of Motor Vehicles and some other places, but I appreciate the introduction. That was very nice. I'm here today to talk about something that I've really gotten interested in the last several years, early childhood education. And I think there's 3 things that really appeal to me about it. Number one, it's an area I think that offers an extraordinary return on your investment if you can find a wise way to invest money in early childhood education. The second thing I really like is that the state of Louisiana, for once, is really out ahead of the curve in this area. They've got some really good programs and progressive programs to promote early childhood education. And the third thing, and the most important for me, is that the school readiness tax credit option that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes is good for bean counters like me. It gives all of us in this room a chance to take money that would otherwise go down to Baton Rouge and redirect it to educational pursuits in Northwest Louisiana. And that's a pretty unusual opportunity, and I hope you'll appreciate that as we go on. I'm like most of you people, I suspect. I understand that education is very, very important, but I know very little about the nuts and bolts and how to deliver it. And as I sit around and listen to discussions and go to meetings that talk about education, one of the things that really strikes me is that, we're so hung up at the state level on school performance scores, which are important. And I'm not saying that schools and school systems shouldn't be accountable for their actions. But the fact is, they're starting with a population that's undereducated and not ready to start school. So they're starting so far behind, it's hard for them to catch up. And in my opinion, it's just misleading to think that our school system is failing us. What's happened is what's coming into the school system is not quite what it should be, and that's an area that we need to really work on and improve. I'm usually handicapped when it comes to technology, so if I take a slow start on this, you can correct me later. We're going to talk about several things today. I want to talk to you just a little bit about statistics, because I got to talk about numbers when I get in front of a group. And then we're going to look at the science behind early childhood education, some of the problems that surface, some of the solutions for that problem or those problems, the opportunity that most of you in this room have to really make an impact in early childhood education. And then I want to talk a little bit about the return on that, and then a mention of a couple of risks that are out there. Let's talk about statistics first, and I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here. But two easy ones. There's research that indicates that children growing up under conditions of poverty hear 30 million less words from ages 0 to 3 than children that come from middle and high income households. Think about that. Some of y'all might have heard a couple of years ago, Dr. Dana Sister come up here, gave a talk out at East Ridge. She's written several books on this topic, and it's just incredible how far behind really these babies are when they get to age 3. And then in Northwest Louisiana, a statistic most of you probably could quote, 35% of our children pass the kindergarten readiness exam in Northwest Louisiana. That tells me we've got a lot of room to improve, and we need to get started on it. I'll give you just a brief video. There's an organization at Harvard University called the Center for Developing Children. That's an absolutely incredible organization. If you ever get interested in this topic and want to kind of start poking around, I highly recommend you go to their website. But this Dr. Shankoff, who's the head of it, is a super, super guy, and I just want to introduce y'all to the science.
The healthy development of young children in the early years of life literally does provide a foundation for just about all of the challenging social problems that our society and other societies face.
What we're learning, not just from behavioral and developmental research, but also now from exciting developments in neuroscience and molecular biology, is how much early experience from birth, in fact, even before birth, how much this experience literally gets into our bodies and shapes our learning capacities, our behaviors, and our physical and mental health. The brain is basically built from the bottom up. First, the brain builds basic circuits that are responsible for basic skills, and then more complex circuits are built on top of those basic circuits as we develop more complex skills. Biologically, the brain is prepared to be shaped by experience. It's expecting the experiences that a young child has to literally influence the formation of its circuitry. It's built into our biology. The interaction between genetics and experience that shapes brain architecture is embedded in the reciprocal relationships that children have with adults in their lives. And by that we mean what we refer to as the serve and return nature of children's interaction with their adults. Development and the impact of experience on development is not a one-way street. It's a back and forth interaction. The brain is a highly integrated organ which has multiple sections that specialize in different kind of processes. So we have parts of the brain that are involved more in cognitive function and other parts that are involved in processing of emotion and parts involved in seeing and hearing. So if a child is emotionally kind of well put together and socially competent, that will affect more positive and productive learning. And if a child is preoccupied with fears or anxiety or is dealing with considerable stress, no matter how intellectually gifted that child might be, his or her learning is going to be impaired by that kind of emotional interference. So when we talk about healthy development in the early years, and particularly when we talk about preparing children to succeed in school, we cannot separate cognitive development from social and emotional development. You can't have one without the other. All development builds on what comes before. So when children experience stable, nurturing relationships, it fosters the development of healthy circuitry. And when children experience uncertainty or instability or abusive or neglectful relationships, it literally disrupts the circuitry in the brain's architecture as it's being built. Over time, this has a wear and tear effect. And the more stress you have, the more causes of stress, and the longer your stress response, the more likely you are to have a whole range of problems later on. It can affect the immune system, it can affect the cardiovascular system, and this is why excessive, prolonged stress early in life is associated with a higher prevalence later, not only of learning problems and behavior difficulties, but also physical and mental health problems.
Because the brain is optimally flexible and plastic early in life, But as it develops its circuitry and refines its circuitry, it loses some of its flexibility, which is why intervening early is so important, because as we often say, when it comes to brain circuitry, it's better to get it right the first time than to try to fix it later.
That's a little heavy, but I think you can get the message, and a lot of it's kind of intuitive. There's several things that always jump out at me when I watch that video. The first one's a little bit of a feeling of guilt. You know, when I was a parent, my kids were young, I thought that goo goo gaga stuff is pretty much sissy stuff, and I don't know how many opportunities to help my child that I probably missed because of it. The other thing that was, I think, prevalent when I was young, a young parent, is I thought putting a kid in front of Sesame Street was good parenting, and that's not good enough. You've got to be in their face, you've got to be interacting, and the science, you can watch 100 videos and it's all going to tell you the same thing. You've got to be face to face, you've got to be interacting. It doesn't have to be a parent, it can be a caregiver, it can be anything else, but there's no substitute for one-on-one, and it needs to be done between the ages of 0 and 3. That's when a lot of this architecture is built. The other part of that video I don't like is it shows you those 3 graphs of the brain circuitry, one at 6 months, and then one I think is at 6 years, and then one of them's at 14. I'm thankful that doesn't go all the way out to age 62, because I think the page may turn blank when you get Arnold out there. It's just kind of a tough deal. But look, takeaways from that. This graph here, it's just embedded in my head. I can't believe how much of this brain architecture is built so early. And if you look at the bottom scale in the graph, you'll see the first year is a long period of time. So the big line out there at 3 to 5 years shows you how much of the damage is done, so to speak, before kids even get into the school system. There's the same numbers, just certain. At age 3, 80% of your brain architecture, your foundation, the neuron network is already built. And then they had a good point on toxic stress. I've been to several things, heard several meetings talking about, you know, the conditions that these kids grow up in. It just makes it impossible for them to really learn. It's just a tough situation. So the problem to me is obvious. 0 to 3 is where it's at. And not worrying about these kids until they hit kindergarten at age 5 is too late. We've got to find a way to interact and get going at an earlier age. And that's easier said than done, because the population that you're trying to reach is not captive. Most child care centers, Nancy, I don't know what the percentages are, but the great majority of the daycare centers in Northwest Louisiana, particularly the ones that are church-oriented, that service newborns and very young children, they're not registered at the state. You don't have a way to easily access those organizations or their customers. So it's a really tough problem, but it's one that's out there. There's a solution. The state has really gotten in front of this thing, as I said. There's a Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. I don't know if any of you know Melanie Bronfman or not. She's on top of everything that happens in Baton Rouge. She's a really good communicator, and she's got a really strong board behind her that's really pushing all sorts of early childhood education initiatives. You also have the Louisiana Early Childhood Care and Educational Network. That's a Louisiana Believes subset. They've done a lot of good work and got a lot of things going on. And then years ago, and I don't recall the year, but the state provided for, I think it's 8 regional child resource and referral agencies. It's either 7 or 8, Nancy. And Nancy's group is the one that services Northwest Louisiana. So we've got the preacher right here in the audience, and you got me up here talking. I don't know if that's the right order of things or not, but she really knows what she's doing. I want to talk to you about Nancy's organization. It's kind of complicated, Nancy, and I hope I get this right. She's a child resource and referral agency. She actually operates under the Northwestern State University Foundation curriculum. And then she has an office here in Shreveport that's affiliated with a nursing school. So don't think Nancy's a Natchitoches out-of-towner type. She's right here in River City, and she's involved in this stuff every day and doing everything she can to help in the area of early childhood education. But there's an opportunity here for everybody in this room to participate in early childhood education qualified Louisiana businesses, and we'll talk about what those are in a minute, can receive a dollar-for-dollar refundable tax credit for up to $5,000 of contribution to Nancy's organization. Think about what that says for a minute. My little air systems, my air conditioning company. I give $5,000 to NSU, which goes to Nancy. When I file my tax return, I get $5,000 off my taxes. If I don't owe $5,000 in taxes, let's say I owe $2,000, they give me a $3,000 refund. So even nonprofits can participate in this. The Community Foundation's done it, VOA has done it. They give $5,000. When they file their return, they get the $5,000 back. I said there's a qualifying business a minute ago. About the only qualification is you must have employees. So you can be incorporated, an LLC, a partnership, even a sole proprietorship. As long as you have employees, you're eligible for this credit. So the part I like is that a small business like my air systems gets just as big a benefit as Capital One Bank or any large employer in town. And it really doesn't cost you anything. You write a check to Nancy and the state gives you the money back. Now that's about as good a no-brainer as you get from my viewpoint. An outstanding opportunity. I got a couple CPA friends in here and I would be neglect if I didn't mention this. There's also the Federal Tax Cut and Jobs Act for 2017 put a new twist into this deal because they're limiting your state income tax deduction on your federal tax return. Does that kind of make sense? Some of you probably read all that. Well, when you work the math on some of this, I think if you use the school readiness tax credit program and write your check for $5,000 to Nancy instead of sending it down to Baton Rouge, I actually think you come out a little bit ahead on your overall taxes because you're going to get a charitable deduction on your federal return, which reduces your federal taxes without the limitations that you have on the state income tax deduction. It's kind of complicated, but it's a nice twist. Ask your CPA or whoever does your tax return and verify I'm not blowing smoke. I think it'll really work. Let's talk about the return briefly. Research indicates that every dollar invested in early childhood education produces a return of $8.74. This return has been widely accepted. The President's Council on Economic Advisors and many others accept that. I don't know, a lot of y'all are in business, a lot of you own your own business. When is the last time you invested in a business and you got $8.74 back? Show of hands, anybody? I want to invest with you if you're able to do that. That's extremely difficult, an extraordinary return, and it's a great opportunity. There is a little bit of risk, and the skeptics in the audience I know are thinking, well, this just sounds too good to be true. One of the things you got to be a little leery of, because we're in the state of Louisiana, and we're subject to the realm of Baton Rouge, is that they have been known to change things in midstream and jerk the rug out from under you on some of these incentive programs. Nancy's group and the NSU Foundation is willing to accept a donation that's contingent on you getting your tax benefit. So it's just a special wording you need to put in your letter, and I'll be glad to help you with it if you need it. You send them the donation, and you say, you've got this, you can do whatever you want with it. But in the event the state comes up with a law change that's retroactive so that I don't get my refund or I don't get my tax reduction, then you'll refund my money. That's the only risk I can see in this deal. And like I say, our CPA firm has probably been participating on 10 years. When did this program start? 2008 or 9 or 10? About 10 years ago. Yeah, about 10 years ago. We've been in it since the beginning. We've never had a glitch or a hitch. And like I say, I think it'll work just exactly like I've described it. So let me just kind of finish up here with a video that kind of sums up the local angle. We've got a couple of local celebrities, I think, in this video, Dr. Gorey. And I won't mention any other names, but we'll just go from there.
Here in Caddo Parish, we're blessed to serve a very diverse population of students. Of that population, we probably have about 65% being raised in economically disadvantaged homes. In that capacity, we do have quite a few students that we are starting their educations in kindergarten behind.
If you look at brain development, you'll see that so much of the development takes place before the child even gets to school. And so as a community, we have to take responsibility for that. Once they get to our doors of the school system, we have to do great work, and we're not off the hook either. But it helps us out so much when students have those basic skills whenever they enter the door to begin with.
Well, studies have shown that 90% of our brain development occurs in the first 4 years of life. It really didn't take a study for us to know that. All of us who are parents or grandparents see how fast children learn. And certainly that's the time when they have the greatest development of their brain.
While schools are doing a good job, once the kids get to us, they're so far behind before they even get to our doors that we have so much catch up to do. And if a community really wants to transform, it has to take ownership of students before they even get to school.
One of the ways businesses can really contribute to early childhood education is through the School Readiness Tax Credit Program. As a part of this program, a business can put up to $5,000 in a child resource and referral agency and get either a $5,000 tax refund or a $5,000 reduction in the tax bill. So you give the money away and you get it right back. In our area, the Child Resource and Referral Agency is Northwestern State University Child and Family Network. It's actually located out as part of the NSU nursing complex. Now, Nancy Alexander runs that program, and she's been working with the Community Foundation and Step Forward to be sure that we get some money that is spent in the best way possible for the highest return.
Thanks. I've got a few links up there. I mentioned Step Forward a couple of times during this presentation. Click on their website, and anything you want to know about early childhood education, and particularly the School Readiness Tax Credit Program, is on there. They've got forms for how to do it. My cell phone number was on that first slide, so I'm pretty easy to find. Give me a call if you have any questions. I think a lot of you are probably, as I said earlier, like me. I want to do something to help education, but I'm not really equipped to go in and tell somebody how to teach or Dr. Gorey how to run the Kettle Parish system or anything like that. This is something as a business owner you can do to direct money into an area that has an unbelievable return on investment. I've worked a lot with Nancy. She's very willing, if you got some ideas about how to really improve things and where to spend the money, she's got a fair degree of flexibility under the statute, and will try to accommodate any desire you have in a specific area or need. A lot of what she does right now is involved in preschool programs, curriculum, training teachers, other caregivers, because it doesn't have to be a parent, but the person that's in that infant space, day in and day out, eyeball to eyeball interacting with them, can have a tremendous influence on their brain development, which in turn is driving the educational return down the road when they finally get into the school system. I hope that makes sense. I hope you're going to explore the possibility. Don't hesitate to call me if you have any questions or I can help. Thank you. Guard?
John, how can it be determined that if somebody gave $5,000, it would be used locally?
Well, Nancy's agency only covers Northwest Louisiana. Is it an 8-parish area? How many?
It's 9.
9-parish
We
area.
routinely use the funds for programs in the parish of the donor.
Right. So Nancy's not, she's not going to give you a piece of paper that says, I'm going to put it in your grandchild's daycare. That's not what she's all about. But she's respecting the wishes of a donor and donor intent in these things. And if you've got a reasonable request to go to a specific area in a specific parish, she's going to do everything she can to help accommodate that. It's a good question. Anything else, Dr. Gordon?
John, and really it's a question for Nancy. Could you speak to some of the things specifically that you've used the money for? I think would benefit the crowd to hear how truly beneficial these dollars are.
A lot of it has gone to curriculum to improve the program in early childhood. I usually project pretty well. Can I get on my subject?
You got it.
Well, that's because I watch it. We've done a lot with curriculum for early childhood programs that serve infants and toddlers and preschoolers to help prepare the children better for school. That's been a lot of it. We've also provided learning materials to support that curriculum because, you know, young children learn from stuff and interactions. They do not learn from TV or technology. In fact, there's been research that shows that that is more detrimental than helpful. So they need materials to manipulate. They need someone talking to them. We only learn to read a word because we understand that word in context, because someone has used it with us, and that's part of the brain development. So most of it has been curriculum, materials, and training for people who work with young children in order to help them make use of the materials. Right now, and there's always been a high turnover rate in child care for a lot of reasons. It's higher than I've ever known it, and I've been doing this a good while. And so there's this ongoing need for that. The money goes into the programs. My program operates from grants, contracts, and fees for service, and so therefore we're covered as far as the administrative costs. So these donations go strictly to the programs. We're preparing now because we've been very strong in Natchitoches, even though I'm located here, and we're redoing playgrounds for all of the early learning programs in Natchitoches Parish. So we're open to a variety of what's needed. We're making the playgrounds educational to include literacy and other things there. So it's going strictly for school readiness. There's some work with parents, literacy bags, and helping parents read to their children. I think the thing that we look at is that if you, I love vet shows, all these new vet shows that they have, and you see a baby goat born, and that kid jumps up and runs off ready to go because its brain is developed. The human baby, when it's born, doesn't jump up and run off because it takes time for the brain to develop. And that's what this effort is for, is to support that development in every way possible so that when they do get to school, they're ready to meet the school standards. And you don't write the check to me. Please don't. I think you're speaking metaphorically, but the check is written to the NSU Foundation. That was a
Nancy, I'm always trying to help you out.
And I'm not trying to hijack the
No,
presentation,
absolutely.
but one thing that I do want to add, and I will agree with everything that Nancy said, of course, but one thing I'll tell you, you talk about the fact that keeps me up at night is that 0 to 3 year mark, because we have so little contact with children in that space, and the research does show too that that gap that is created cannot be made up. So anything, and you know that our dollars, we have, you know, because we believe that education started at 4. So pretty much all of our dollars still kind of believe that, and that's where most of our monies are allocated. So anything that we can do to support what our community is doing from 0 to 3 would certainly be appreciated, because John's right. It totally affects the product that makes it to kindergarten, that makes it even to preschool. So that, and what we're seeing is that children of poverty are being impacted even more because our children are getting it naturally because of the experiences that we provide them from 0 to 3. We're filling in the gap just organically because of conversations and things that we're doing with our children. But you're seeing children of poverty at a huge disadvantage. So I'm sure Nancy would agree too that most of those services will help children of poverty, which changes the workforce, which changes so many things about the future of our community. So, and John, you know, I always appreciate you and your commitment to this work and to so many other works in our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would it be possible that we get the address and contact information and put it in the Rotary post?
Yes.
I didn't catch that.
Great idea. And we could put some blank checks in there so everybody could just wipe something out. I really like it. I'm watching this clock on the podium and I know I'm about to run out of time, so I'm glad to hang around for a while if you have any specific questions.
Can I ask one?
Sure, Tom.
Did I hear you correctly that I get the part about credit for Louisiana income tax, but also you can deduct that on your federal taxes?
Yes, when you
That's, you know, that's, it's a
tax credit. It comes off of your tax bill.
You're Louisiana, but
No,
but it's
federal.
Yeah, you're making a charitable contribution to the NSU Foundation.
But is that I guess your state income or your federal?
It's a charitable tax deduction.
Tax credit.
A
Yeah.
tax credit on
No,
your.
it's a deduction on your federal return. You get the letter back, your 501c3 letter back saying you made a donation.
So you get a credit on your state, and you can also deduct it on your federal.
Yeah, and it's really kind of fair to say you're really just moving it from, you're not really reducing your federal income. You're taking it off your state income tax deduction and putting it in your charitable. So there's really not a net benefit to that, except for this little twist I mentioned with the 2017 Tax Act, where you may actually pick up a few dollars because of the limitations that are now imposed on the state income tax deduction. Don't any of you CPAs correct me on that. If I'm wrong, call me and I'll get it in the next outline. Thanks a lot for your time. I really appreciate it.
John, we want to thank you for being here today, and on behalf of the club, I want to present you with a rotary phone bank. It's got, contains electricity to power up that phone and keep it going.
Come on, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank y'all.
Also, John, in honor of you, we're recognizing the Food Bank of Northwest Louisiana with an honorarium in your name today. The next thing we have is a couple of reminders. Lori wanted to remind me that because of the presentation today, or in conjunction with the presentation today, that's why our club has selected the Rotary Brain Bus as our project of the first big project. And thank Jeb and Terry and the rest of the group for working on that. Let me call up James Blewett for the drawing. James. Okay, today we collected $86, half for the foundation, $43, and $43 for the winner. And James bought a bunch of tickets, so he's going to let somebody else actually draw them. Okay, James.
All right, for the money, 620454.
Here we go, Merritt Chastain.
Merritt. For Andy Sheehan's eggs.
Okay.
20420. Y'all want that?
They're good today.
20420.
Were those your tickets, James?
Oh.
I told
That's mine.
They got the
For the flowers, 20344.
Okay.
Got the flowers.
And then you got the book from the
Oh, we didn't pull a fourth.
Okay, cool, one more.
All right, for the book, 20380.
James Blewett, did he win that?
20380.
Gotta be James.
Get another. No, that's not mine.
Okay.
Two 20378. Two 20378. All right.
Okay, Lawrence got it. Okay. Thank you very much, James. I want to thank the members for working the welcome desk today. The greeter scanner was Keith Hansen, who has a red badge. Tom Arsenault was the raffle ticket seller with a gold badge, and the money taker was Charlie Hennington with a blue badge. I want to remind everybody about next week's program. Those things I gave out today at the door were not tickets, those were just reminders. So I'd like for you to put that in a special place at your house and remember to come next week. As y'all know, Cecil Campbell, a retired 26th district judge. He's a great Rotary District governor. Judy's getting good reports from the other clubs that he's been to. He's doing a great job. I'd like to have a great showing next week for that. I Want to thank the guests and members for attending today and welcome them back. And Keith Hansen is going to do the four-way test today. Keith?
Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and benefit friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Okay, Rotary's adjourned. Thank you. We keep doing it until I get it back there. You did it right. And still, she came.
You know what? I'm okay. Nobody else. I will.